So I know the statement Steins Gate is wish fulfillment is not exactly a hot take. Um, it's kind of one of the biggest examples of, main character with very strange, hyper-specific skill is able to save the world and pull a very hot girl with that skill. So I'm not under any illusion that, this is a hot take or anything, but I think Steins Gate, and particularly Steins Gate Zero, tap into, a more primal wish that a lot of neat otaku have. Because the whole thesis of Zero appears to be this, big call to action, in the same way that Evangelion was like, hey, otaku, wake up and start seizing your lives, don't separate yourselves from everybody. I think Steins Gate Zero is very much like a, hey, disenfranchised, really hopeless youth population of Japan, now's our time, we can actually, combat this, we can make something of ourselves, we don't just have to be this silent lost generation that, otaku culture is sort of shaping us into. And I think that, with how Steins Gate steeps itself in the Akiba culture and in the just visual novel space, it's just, it's that call to action. And Zero takes that and really hammers it home by, not only is Okabe's, skill and profession something that allows him to, save the world and pull a really hot girl, but, it's also sort of just tangibly useful to the people around him, and that's something that I think that a lot of NEETs, a lot of otaku, a lot of people in their early 20s with hyperfixations really just kind of want from what they have is, can I just take this, skill or obsession of mine and turn it into something, really anything that's tangentially beneficial to me and the people around me in a way that's more than just, oh, this thing makes me happy, having this hobby or having this interest makes me happy. I want to take this thing, not necessarily make money off of it per se, but turn it into this thing that saves my life almost. And Okabe is able to do that because his weird Chunibyo ramblings about time travel not only end up being true, they end up saving the world and pulling a girl and etc. etc. And it becomes useful to the people around him. His research lab actually becomes a focal point of scientific thought, as opposed to just this rinky-dink back room of a TV store and laundromat, and so the more I think about Steins Gate and the more that I think it oscillates so often in my mind, and it has ever since I watched /read it 5 or 6 years ago, where who I am as a person has very much influenced what I thought of Steins Gate. When I watched it, I really wasn't all that politically literate. I didn't really, I would call myself right-wing, but only because I just parroted my parents at the time. And so there was a lot of things in Steins Gate that kind of slid off my back, Daru's just kind of like that. Man, it's kind of weird that Ruka is, very effeminate because she or he is apparently a guy or whatever. And, Mayushi was just kind of weird and sometimes off-putting. But then, I sort of I'm thrust into neoliberal utopian idea, everyone kumbaya politics, and I'm like, man, it is really fucked up that Okabe, in his attempt to sort of rewrite all of his wrongs, detransitions Ruka, how dare he do that, how dare, all, and Daru's just this misogynistic pig that makes the show way worse, and how dare they have this type of character, and Mayushi's just a lobotomized child, but it's totally okay because she's 18, guys, I promise, and it's just this a whole thing. And Steins Gate sort of seems to want you to think about it in the same way that its characters have to think about the unknown moral of the show. The show's moral is not known to them, but, should we feel certain things about these characters, or should it be up to ourselves? Should these characters, go for the stable course of action? Should they just be happy with a life that is, not death-defying at every turn or spectacular and just kind of is what it is. Like, you know, the Shikata-ganai, I think it looks at the Shikata-ganai idea and not just, you know, it criticizes it. Like, Okabe's post-Kurisu life is bleak. I mean, he puts himself through hell, not just to save some girl that he's fallen in love with, but, you know, it's almost a fight for his identity. You know, if he's right about this, if he's right about what he's been studying, and if his opinions and his desires are correct, then he will come out on top. And you know, in Zero, whenever it seems like that isn't the case, he's a shell of himself, because he seems to have just resigned himself to believing that his ideas aren't good enough, that his motivation wasn't strong enough, and that he as a person was not unique enough or intelligent enough to do what he had to do in order to bring Kurisu back. And I think that echoes the sentiment of a lot of Steins Gate's audience, especially an audience that resonated with it pretty significantly, even to today. And so that's just like what I've been thinking about. I listened to Gate of Steiner on the way home from work today and was like, Steins Gate's pretty layered, and I don't think people nowadays give it the credit that it deserves for that. I mean, obviously back in 2011, there were enough forum threads to fill a compendium about this show, but, you know, my timeline for analyzing anime has kind of moved up a bit, and now shows that came out whenever I was in high school are retro, so I'll be reckoning with that over the next few days.